Have you ever wondered why so many men, especially after 50, seem to crave closeness more deeply, not just physically, but emotionally? Why their desire for connection grows stronger even as their bodies slow down? I'm Dr. Lisa Perriera, a board-certified gynecologist with over 30 years of experience helping women navigate menopause hormones and the emotional side of intimacy. And today, I want to talk about something that's often misunderstood: why men over 50 long for emotional intimacy more than ever, and how understanding this can transform your relationship and your confidence at any age. Most women assume that as men age, their interest in affection fades. But the truth is, for many, the need for closeness becomes deeper, more meaningful. It's no longer just about the act, it's about connection, validation, and love expressed in quieter ways. Men in their 50s, 60s, and beyond often tell me, "I don't just want passion, I want to feel close to her again." They crave emotional recognition, touch that feels genuine, and moments of warmth that remind them they're still loved, still desired, still relevant. And yet, here's the paradox: many women interpret this shift as pressure or confusion. They see their partner's longing for connection as something they can't fully understand, or worse, as something they've outgrown. But in truth, this stage of life can be the most fulfilling chapter for love if both partners understand what's really happening beneath the surface. In this video, we'll explore the science, the psychology, and the heart behind men's changing needs after 50, and how women can respond in ways that rebuild trust, passion, and mutual joy. We'll talk about the biological changes that make emotional connection more important for men, why many couples drift apart emotionally after 50, and how to fix it, the surprising health and hormonal benefits of emotional intimacy for both partners, and the number one secret that reignites closeness naturally without forcing anything. Stay with me until the end, because I'll also share a story of a couple in their 70s who rediscovered connection, not through grand gestures, but through one simple daily habit that completely changed their marriage. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love hearing from women around the world who are learning that intimacy doesn't fade with age, it simply evolves. Now let's start with the first truth. The real reason men over 50 crave emotional intimacy has less to do with desire and everything to do with biology and belonging. As men cross 50, something begins to change quietly at first, but deeply. The same man who once seemed driven by physical attraction now seems to crave closeness, reassurance, and emotional warmth in a way that might surprise his partner. And many women ask me in my clinic, "Dr. Lisa, why is he suddenly more sensitive, more affectionate, or sometimes even distant?" The answer is both biological and emotional. Around midlife, men go through their own form of hormonal transition, what medicine calls andropause. Just as women experience declining estrogen, men experience a gradual decrease in testosterone. It's slower and less dramatic, but over the years, it changes how they think, feel, and connect. Testosterone isn't only about strength or drive, it also affects confidence, motivation, and mood. As levels drop, many men begin to feel less assertive, more reflective, and sometimes insecure about their virility. They may still desire their partner, but they no longer feel the same spontaneous spark they once did. Instead, they start seeking something deeper, a form of connection that reminds them they're still valued, still desired, still whole. This shift doesn't mean something is wrong with them, it's evolution at work. The body naturally moves from reproduction toward preservation, from performance to partnership. The same hormones that once fueled pursuit now encourage bonding and emotional attachment. You may notice subtle changes. He holds you longer. During hugs, he wants to talk more before going to bed. He seeks eye contact instead of words. These aren't random. Studies show that as testosterone decreases, the hormone oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, takes on a more significant role in emotional regulation for men. Oxytocin helps them feel calm, connected, and emotionally safe. So what does that mean for you? It means that the love language of a man after 50 often transforms. He's not only craving passion, he's craving peace. He wants closeness that feels secure, not just exciting. For many men, intimacy becomes less about physical urgency and more about emotional affirmation. But here's where things can go wrong. While men are learning to express connection differently, women at the same age are often going through their own transformation, navigating menopause, fatigue, body changes, and shifting self-image. Both partners are changing at the same time, but rarely talking about it. The result? Misunderstanding. He reaches for closeness. She interprets it as pressure. She needs emotional safety. He feels rejected. It's no wonder so many couples drift apart during these years, not because love fades, but because their emotional languages no longer align. Yet when couples learn to see this shift as biological, not personal, something beautiful happens. The walls come down. Instead of frustration, there's empathy. A woman realizes her partner isn't asking for more because he's demanding, he's reaching out, because he's adapting. He's trying to find his new rhythm of love. In one study, published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, researchers found that men over 55 reported greater satisfaction in relationships that prioritized emotional intimacy over physical frequency. They valued touch listening and shared routines far more than performance or excitement. It's proof that connection, not perfection, is what sustains love in later years. So if your partner seems different, more emotional, more attentive, or even more withdrawn, don't assume he's losing interest. More likely, he's trying to rediscover how to express affection in a body that's changing. And here's the irony. While men are learning to slow down emotionally, women at this stage often start rediscovering their own sense of confidence and freedom. When both sides meet halfway, his need for closeness and her need for acceptance, something powerful happens. Intimacy becomes richer, calmer, and more meaningful than ever before. I often tell my patients this. After 50, love stops shouting and starts whispering. It's in the little things, a morning coffee. Together, a gentle touch on the shoulder. The quiet reassurance that I'm still here. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the emotional psychology behind this shift. How men communicate love differently, what they secretly fear, and how you can respond in a way that draws you closer instead of pushing you apart. But before we continue, tell me in the comments, have you noticed your partner becoming more emotional or affectionate with age? Share your story and where you're watching from. You'd be amazed how many couples are walking the same path. Now let's explore what's truly happening inside the hearts of men after 50, and how understanding it can rekindle the kind of connection that lasts for decades. When I sit across from couples in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, the same quiet frustration comes up again and again. The wife says he wants to be close all the time, but I don't understand what he's really looking for. The husband says, she's here with me, but I feel like she's somewhere else. Both are yearning for the same thing, connection, but they're speaking different emotional languages. Here's what most women don't realize: as men age, their sense of identity becomes deeply tied to how emotionally connected they feel with their partner. In their younger years, men are often driven by performance, success, strength, and confidence. But after 50, something shifts. Their confidence is no longer fueled by achievements, it's fueled by closeness. They begin to measure love, not by how often they're desired, but by how deeply they're accepted. They crave reassurance that they're still important, still capable of making you happy. When a man reaches for you, whether it's through touch conversation or a simple hug, what he's really saying is, do I still matter to you? And when that need goes unmet, even unintentionally, he can withdraw. It's not anger, it's protection. He starts to avoid emotional risk the same way we protect a physical wound. The result is distance that feels confusing and painful for both sides. But when a woman understands this emotional landscape, she gains the power to transform it. Small acts of affirmation, like saying, "I love when you hold me," or "I appreciate you doing that," can reach deeper than grand gestures ever could. You're speaking directly to his emotional core, the part that needs to feel valued rather than judged. Psychologists call this empathic reassurance, a form of communication that validates emotion before addressing behavior. When a man feels understood, his defenses lower. He opens up. And here's the key. Once he feels emotionally safe, his affection naturally deepens. He becomes more patient, more tender, more willing to listen. I remember one couple married for over 30 years who told me they'd become distant after retirement. The wife felt her husband had grown overly dependent on her attention. The husband felt invisible. When I explained that his clinginess wasn't weakness, but a response to emotional uncertainty, she looked at him differently. She began small gestures, touching his hand during breakfast, asking his opinion, thanking him for helping around the house. 2 months later, they came back smiling. He said, "It's like we're falling in love again, but calmer this time." That's what understanding can do. Men after 50 also tend to express love differently. They may show it through protection, fixing things, or trying to solve problems quickly. To them, helping is loving. So when they see their partner upset, their instinct is to do something, repair, advise, or offer solutions. Women, on the other hand, often want empathy first, someone to listen, not fix. This mismatch can lead to hurt on both sides. He thinks he's helping. She thinks he's not listening. But when you realize that his urge to solve comes from care, not control, the tension eases. Try saying, "I appreciate that you want to help. What I need right now is just for you to listen." That clarity bridges the emotional gap beautifully. It's also worth remembering that many men, especially in later life, struggle to express emotion because they were never taught how. They may not know how to talk about loneliness or fear, but they can show it through small gestures, staying close, holding your hand, sitting beside you in silence. If you can see those actions as emotional communication, you'll realize he's saying more than his words ever could. Here's the takeaway: when women feel loved through conversation and men feel loved through appreciation, both are right. The secret is to meet in the middle. Emotional intimacy after 50 isn't about reigniting youth. It's about rediscovering gentleness. It's about slowing down enough to see each other not as who you were, but who you've become. In the next part, we'll look at how couples who've been together for decades have used these insights to rebuild their bond, real stories of transformation that show how emotional and physical connection can grow stronger, not weaker, with age. But before we continue, I'd love to know what's one small gesture from your partner that makes you feel loved. Type it in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes the smallest things, a glance, a word, a touch, say more than any grand declaration ever could. Now let's step into the stories of real couples who learned that the best years of intimacy don't fade with age, they begin when you finally understand each other. Let me share a story that has stayed with me for years. A woman named Grace, 67, came into my office one afternoon. She was elegant, soft-spoken, and a little nervous. "Doctor," she said, "I think my husband has changed. He wants to talk more, touch more, sit closer. But I don't know how to respond. I've gotten used to us being quiet." Her husband, Robert, had retired 2 years earlier. For decades, he'd been busy, structured, focused on work. Suddenly, the noise of his career was gone, and he was left with silence. In that silence, something unexpected happened. He began craving not adventure, but affection. He wanted to feel close again. Grace admitted she didn't understand it. "We love each other," she said. "But I don't know how to give him what he's asking for. We don't talk about emotions much." So I asked her a simple question. "When was the last time you just sat together without phones, without TV, without words, just sat close enough to feel his warmth?" She smiled faintly. "Years," she said. That moment became the start of something new. I gave them a simple exercise, 15 minutes every evening, no screens, no distractions. Sit together. Hold hands if it feels right. Just breathe. No conversation required. 3 weeks later, Grace returned with tears in her eyes. "Doctor," she said, "it's working. We don't always talk, but we feel each other again. Sometimes he'll tell me stories from when we first met. Sometimes we just laugh. It feels peaceful." That's the essence of emotional intimacy. After 60, it's not about intensity. It's about presence. When couples slow down long enough to see each other again, something awakens. The heart remembers. Here's the analogy I often share with my patients. A young love burns like fire, bright, hot, unpredictable. Mature love, on the other hand, is like glowing embers. It doesn't flare wildly, but it gives steady warmth through the night. The secret is not to reignite the flames, it's to protect the glow. That glow is built through small rituals. A morning coffee together, a walk after dinner, a gentle kiss before bed. These aren't cliches, they're neurological anchors. They tell the brain, "I'm safe, I'm seen, I belong." When practiced regularly, they restore oxytocin levels, lower stress hormones, and rebuild trust. Another couple I worked with, Linda and Charles, both in their 70s, rediscovered intimacy in the most unexpected way: gardening. After years of emotional distance, they decided to start a small backyard project. Working side by side, they began talking, laughing, and teasing each other again. What began as soil and seeds became a metaphor for their relationship: patient care, daily attention, quiet joy. Linda told me, "It's strange, but we started holding hands while pulling weeds. We hadn't done that in 20 years. That's the quiet beauty of later life love. It grows not from passion's spark, but from nurturing the ordinary. Emotional closeness, like a garden, doesn't demand grand gestures. It asks for small, consistent ones. The soil needs water. The heart needs presence. Both respond to care. Many women I meet think intimacy fades because of age. But in truth, it fades from neglect. When we stop feeding connection, it grows silent. But when we return to small acts of attention, eye contact, touch, appreciation, connection revives itself. Grace and Robert still visit me once a year. Each time they smile and hold hands like new lovers. Robert once said, "We didn't fall back in love, we remembered how to love." That sentence captures what I hope every woman remembers. Intimacy after 60 is not about recapturing youth. It's about reclaiming awareness. The ability to notice your partner's breath, to appreciate your own aliveness, to realize that affection isn't gone. It's simply waiting for you to slow down enough to feel it. So ask yourself tonight, not how do we get passion back, but how can we feel close again? Sometimes the answer is as simple as 15 quiet minutes and a willingness to listen with your heart. In the final part of this video, I'll summarize everything we've learned and show you how to turn these small moments into a lasting habit that strengthens both your emotional and physical well-being. But before we move on, tell me what's one small ritual that keeps you and your partner connected? A walk, a meal, a prayer, a shared laugh. Type it in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Because your story might remind another couple that love at any age still grows when it's nurtured. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want you to pause for a moment and take a deep breath. Think about everything we've uncovered together. We began by asking a simple question. Why do men over 50 crave emotional intimacy more than ever? And through science, psychology, and real stories, we've discovered that it's not about fading desire. It's about evolving desire. The need for closeness doesn't disappear with age. It deepens. It changes shape. It becomes less about passion and more about presence, less about performance and more about peace. In part 1, we explored how this new chapter of love begins, how aging shifts not only the body, but also the heart. As men and women mature, their connection can become even richer if they understand what's happening beneath the surface. In part 2, we looked at biology, how declining testosterone and rising oxytocin make men more emotionally open, more reflective, and more drawn to gentleness and connection. We learned that these changes don't weaken them, they humanize them. They make love feel more meaningful than ever. In part 3, we saw how men express love differently, how what looks like distance is often vulnerability, and how what feels like neediness is often a plea for reassurance. You learned that small affirmations, kind words, and shared moments of attention can restore confidence and bring a man closer to you than grand gestures ever could. Then, in part 4, we walked through real stories, couples who found their way back to each other after years of silence, proving that intimacy doesn't have an expiration date. We saw how presence, not passion, is what keeps love alive, and how a simple ritual, 15 quiet minutes together, a shared cup of tea, a walk hand in hand, can reignite warmth in even the oldest relationships. And now here in part 5, I want to leave you with this: emotional intimacy is not something that fades with time. It's something that matures like fine wine or an old oak tree, stronger, steadier, and more deeply rooted with every passing year. For women, this chapter can be a turning point. Many of my patients tell me they feared love would end after menopause, that their bodies had changed too much, that their confidence was gone. But what they discovered instead is that when they stopped chasing who they used to be and started embracing who they are, now love became easier, freer, more real. And the same is true for you. The most powerful connection you can build after 50 isn't one based on youth or perfection. It's one based on honesty, empathy, and choice. Every touch, every glance, every word of appreciation is a reminder that you're both still here, still choosing each other. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be this: aging doesn't close the door to intimacy, it opens a new one. One where there's no rush, no pretending, no pressure. Just truth. Just care. Just two people who know how precious time has become and who choose to spend it close, present, and grateful. So tonight, I invite you to do something small. Sit beside your partner, no phones, no noise, and simply touch their hand. Say something kind. Ask them how they're really feeling. That one quiet act can do more for your relationship than any big conversation ever could. And if you're not currently in a relationship, that same principle applies to self-connection. Emotional intimacy begins with yourself being gentle, patient, and kind to your own body and your own journey. When you learn to love yourself with softness, you create the space for others to do the same. Before we close, I want to remind you this video is for educational purposes only. It's not a substitute for personal medical advice. Every woman's experience is unique. If you're going through hormonal, emotional, or relationship changes, talk with a healthcare provider who understands your needs. Your well-being deserves personalized care. Now I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from tonight? And what's one insight from this conversation that spoke to your heart? Type it in the comments below, because when we share, we help other women realize they're not alone in this chapter. And if this video has inspired you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who might need a reminder that intimacy doesn't end with age. It evolves. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Dr. Lisa Perriera, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll talk about how women can rediscover their confident circulation and natural vitality after menopause. Because your story isn't slowing down. It's just beginning again with more wisdom, more love, and a heart that's finally ready to be seen.